Hi everybody and happy Labor Day. I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with an early September weekly garden tour. I can't believe that we are already into the month of September. The gardens are looking great, and I wanted to start right here with this trial eggplant that is actually almost as tall as me. It only has a few more inches to go, and it's actually going to be over my head. I've been harvesting tons of eggplant from it, and I have really perfected my vegan, Brie safe baba ganoush, which is easy and delicious. But without further ado, let me turn this camera around so that you can see how my gardens here in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina are growing as we get into the month of September. We are only 3 weeks away from the fall open garden on Saturday, September 21st. In addition to that eggplant that has just been an outstanding performer all summer long, it's produced so much fruit. This salvia, which was also a trial plant, has really impressed me. It's been hardy for the last few years, which is really great, and the pollinators just love it. There's never a moment when there aren't bees and butterflies and different things gathering nectar from it. You can see that the cleome are starting to wane a bit, and I'm also seeing some insects that pretty often kind of infest these plants and really eat all the foliage. These are mating. But that's okay. They still look good. They're really holding their own. This Wicked Witch Coleus from Proven Winners is so awesome. I really love it. I have been watering because we've been very hot and really haven't gotten much, not any really substantial amounts of rain. The Coleus will wilt when it's like nearly 100 degrees. But you can see that Thailand giant, Colocasia, which actually overwintered. Oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird. They're so cute. I'm a terrible hummingbird photographer, but I promise you it's up there. Okay, back to the Colocasia. I'm really impressed that it's grown this much. You know, it didn't break dormancy until like July, I guess, when we started to get rain, and it's really bulked up quite nicely. I think I'm gonna try and dig some of the Colocasias that have shown up and put them into the greenhouse over the winter and see if I can overwinter them successfully. But I just wanted to show you the castor beans are getting really large. You can see they're starting to flower and go to seed. And, you know, overall, I'm just really happy with how this front cottage border has come out. My goal of having a white edge, burgundy middle, a white kind of central point, and then more burgundy has definitely come to fruition. I really like this combination of plants as a whole. So I highly recommend growing a lot of these summer annuals if you want to have a really dynamic display. Well, the wave is not very impressive, and a new revelation is that the deer are eating the buckwheat, which is just not great. I really rely on buckwheat to fill in a lot of open space, and well, this is the deer's favorite buffet space. But I am really pleased to show you that the fava beans that Aiden planted a few weeks ago are starting to grow quite well. And it'll be really interesting to see how these perform over the fall and then what their status will be over the winter time. Really, I'm just sort of experimenting with seed sowing times on the fava beans to identify when the perfect time is. I kind of think late February, mid to late February is best, but well, we're gonna find out if an early August sowing works out. Well, I made the decision to contact my arborist, and I'm going to have a couple of trees removed, including this hybrid oak, which is a variety called Concolor. And it's half Robur, I think half white oak, so half English, half American. And it's just, well, you can see how many dead branches there are, and this is like year 3 of a pretty significant decline. I don't know exactly what's causing the trouble, But I really don't need a giant oak here because I already have a giant oak there. I have another oak right here, a really great columnar variety that's super healthy. So I think taking this one out, really it isn't going to be a loss. It's just we have to figure out where to hang the hammock. So the cats really enjoy using the hammock. So it'll probably be a few weeks before Snell tree experts are able to come out and do the removal, but I think it's going to be the right decision. And it'll, well, 12 years in the ground, sometimes things like this happen. So I mentioned that the deer are eating the buckwheat in the wave, but knock on wood, they haven't discovered all of this buckwheat. And you can see it's already starting to flower. This was seeded about 3 weeks ago, I think. And, you know, I seeded it really heavy, so it's small. It's a little yellow. I probably should have fertilized, but I didn't. But that's okay. The main goal was just to sort of smother out any potential weeds that could get established in here. And for the most part, I think it's an improvement compared to what it was. But I definitely have some ideas rolling in my head about what to do with this bed. But we're not going to take on any major projects like that until it's much cooler or much wetter. So realistically, probably December. Well, I was comparing the Carex cherokeensis that is over in the native borders with this here. And of course it looks better because it's in shade, which is what it prefers. But my good friend Preston Montague was here last night. We were talking about how sometimes in a native plant palette, the textures are all very similar. And here it's mixed with a bunch of non-native things like Rhodia japonica and ajuga and gardenia and azalea and euphorbia here. And the Carex texture is really, it just softens everything. Whereas in the native borders, everything kind of has that same strappy foliage and it doesn't stand out as well. And I think that's a great thing to recognize, that when you're a gardener, you can choose plants regardless of where they're from, grow the plants for their attributes and grow the plants that bring you joy. And I'm really appreciating all of the native borders and I'm learning a lot from them. But moments like this, I think, are what I'm primarily inspired by. A combination of all the best plants growing together. So I was at the Arboretum over the weekend. It was so hot, I couldn't make a video. My phone kept turning off. But they had so many Lycoris in bloom. And look what I just noticed. I've got a couple here in the midst of the phlox stand. The phlox wasn't always taking over this much space. But I'm so excited that I have a couple in bloom. I absolutely love Lycoris. This is Lycoris radiata. And I've planted hundreds all through this section and all through that border. And I do think that I let them get too dry this summer and they went dormant. So I don't expect that I'm going to have all that many. But I'm really pleased that I do have a couple. They're a really wonderful plant. And speaking of wonderful plants, this end with all these native perennials like the Rudbeckia and Coreopsis is just really looking quite nice. And this is one of the advantages of it being dry earlier this year. None of them are as tall as they normally would be. You know, generally this Rudbeckia is like 7 foot tall and flops all over the place and looks like a mess, which is why I was planning to transplant it. But because we were dry this year, it's the perfect size and it's super well behaved. So there's not a lot about drought that I would say is positive, but this is one situation where the plants actually benefited from being a bit drier. And as I come along the north side here, you can see everything is filling in. Not quite chrysanthemum season yet, but they're growing nicely. These will begin bloom probably mid to late October. Often like through the whole month of November. It's a really cute tiny pink flower. Because we have been getting a bit of rain and not much, but a little. And I have been irrigating. the Alstroemeria is starting to come back out of dormancy, which is great because I think that is such a beautiful variegation. And as we come along here, we had a dinner party last night and everybody was so impressed with this mangave, and I think everybody is just intrigued by growing these. They're just so beautiful. And again, the thing that I really appreciate about them is that though they have a spike, they're not thorny like an agave is. Like, you couldn't really touch an agave that way. So I really appreciate that they get the structure of an agave without the potential for really hurting yourself. Well, I'm thrilled to see right here a volunteer Seminole pumpkin. And I know this is Seminole because of the pattern on its leaf. And I definitely want this to train up. I want this to grow up over this arch. I posted a video about the cattle fences and I neglected to show any of my cattle fence arches. So these are the whole pieces from Tractor Supply, not cut. And we haul those home just by arching them and putting them in the back of the truck, like in the truck bed. And then you can see they're just attached to electrical conduit. They're starting to need to be re-secured. You can see this one kind of is a little bit loose. But for the most part, these have been in, I'm going to say 7, maybe 8 years. And they're reliable and sturdy, and they totally do their job if you plant the right things to actually climb on it. Most of the time, I don't have this well covered. This is why I put the hops in, and then I have the champagne grape. But I think with that volunteer Seminole pumpkin, this actually has the potential to look really impressive. You have to stay tuned and continue to watching the weekly garden tours. Well, everybody, I'm going to end here for now, and I hope that you will tune in tomorrow for part 2 of my weekly garden tour as I show you everything else that's growing here in the backyard as we count down the days for the Fall Open Garden, which is a free, no registration, rain or shine event. Every day I'm getting new ideas for more vendors, so you're just going to have to plan to come to be able to see all the awesome arts and, well, everything that is going to be presented. David Sapio was here last night, and he is going to make some of his really beautiful hummingbird swings that the hummingbirds like to sit on, and he's going to have some of those available for sale, and you'll be able to see him and hang out with him, which is, I think, a huge bonus. Well, as always, thanks so much for watching, and happy gardening, everybody.